But let's turn the spotlight on the sector that's sparkling. That's the metal index. We have Parthiv Jhonsa, the lead analyst, metal and mining at Anand Rathi Institutional Equities, who joins us on the show. Hi, Parthiv. Good morning and good to see you. Well, what's the view? China seems to be trying to get its act together, and that's what's led to a big spurt in terms of commodity pricing and even our metal stocks out here. What's your view? How do you approach this theme? You have, cooling off of rates in the United States, which is good for non-ferrous companies as well. So what's your preference, ferrous or non-ferrous?
Yeah. Hi, good morning, Nigel. Thank you for having me on your show. Let us first deep dive into what is actually happening in China, right? China today is world's largest producer consumer across, ferrous and non-ferrous both, whether you talk about steel, aluminium, copper, any kind of metal, right? So what used to happen is, over last, I would say 3-4 years, their property sector, which was one of the largest, consumer of the metal, was actually lagging. So if you see, especially post 2020, 21, 22 era, whatever, this is not the first time China has actually got any kind of a stimulus, I would say. Even before whatever the stimulus they got it, they were all in piecemeal basis, and none of the stimulus has actually given out the rally. The rally did not sustain going forward, right? So whenever the prices used to rally in anticipation of those stimulus, and thereafter they used to cool down. This time around also, though this is one of the largest stimulus announced by China, I would say, the prices have rallied in anticipation of the stimulus. However, for things to turn around, you need to have multiple further stimuluses going forward in order for this to sustain. Now, when you talk about ferrous and non-ferrous, right? Ferrous also, iron ore is one of the largest drivers in the ferrous side of the business, right? Today, what is happening in iron ore that, Chinese port inventory is at its record levels. They are at about 146, 148 million tons, and there are no signs of it going down below 140, 135 million tons, at least over the last 2 to 3 months. When you talk about long steel, Nigel, what happens is there has been some there has been some inventory reduction in long steel, because especially during this autumn festival, which has been observed in mainland China, there has been a lot of outdoor construction which picks up. So there has been some inventory reduction in the long steel. However, flat steel keeps on mounting. There has been not great. There hasn't been any great reduction in the inventory for flat steel, and because the demand within the domestic within China is not that great, they have been dumping around. This year also, they are having record exports, and I'm expecting, by the end of CY24, the exports would be over 110 million ton. So until unless there is no real pickup in consumption within China, this stimulus will also be one of those stimulus, and we believe that there will be multiple stimulus which will keep on coming forward, but there has to be something big bang coming from the country.
Parthiv, so I take all of those points that you've given us. The other counter argument is that only 5% of the Chinese steel producers are making money as of now. If that is the case, then that could be a sign that pricing is bottoming out. Yes, the inventory, iron ore inventory at ports as well are piling up, and that's a big worry. So what would your approach be? If the stimulus is coming about, if things have bottomed out, then which are the top picks? Since you mentioned that longs, maybe that inventory levels are coming down, will JSPL be your top pick from the ferrous pack?
Sure. You absolutely pointed out a right fact that, hardly 5% of the mills out there are actually making money, right? The burn rate is quite huge. Over and above, the blast furnace utilization rate over the last 3 weeks has been continuously going up. So there has been continuous production, and that is actually keep on mounting on the pressure. The pressure has been there on the prices, right? As far as your domestic play is concerned, we are very positive on companies which have a pure domestic presence, which are adding capacity towards value-added products. So companies like JSW and JSPL are, as a house, we have a topic on these two companies in the ferrous space. So we are positive on the domestic growth story. India is one of those few countries which is actually progressing very well. We are expected to grow over 8.5% going forward in ferrous space. Also in non-ferrous space, when you talk about aluminium and copper, we are expected to double down on our consumption over next by the end of this decade, by say 2030 or 2032, right? We expected to double down on our consumption. Also, the new age sectors has been driving a lot of demand for the non-ferrous side.
Yeah, Parthiv. So exactly what I was coming to. Since you sound optimistic on non-ferrous and demand seems to be good, what's the best way of playing it? Which stock?
So we are very positive on companies like, say, Hindalco, which has a very strong domestic presence, which is there across aluminium, which is there across downstream, which is there across copper. Also, we are very positive because, Novelis expansion, which has been happening at Hindalco, it will come on stream over next 2 to 3 years. Once that is there, they'll be taking under next phase of expansion as well. They have been doing a lot of debottlenecking, a lot of recycling plants are they have been putting. So these all things, overall, if you consider, we are very optimistic on companies like Hindalco in the
Okay, all
non-ferrous
right.
space.
All right, but what about Vedanta? Because Vedanta is giving you exposure to everything. Geopolitical tensions, the rising crude, they'll stand to benefit. If there is some kind of disruption, then aluminium is there to play it. Precious metals is twinkling, then silver is there. But you have that promoter question mark always. You don't know what they're going to do next. What's your view at these levels? Now, actually, Vedanta has been the biggest underperformer. The stock was more than 500 rupees, I think around 5 months ago. And now it's
Yes.
still at around that 470. Adjusted, it's still only at around 500 rupees.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Nigel. The thing is, I'm very positive on, especially on the Vedanta aluminium front, because Vedanta is one of those few companies which is actually adding in the primary, aluminium, right? No other Indian entity is actually adding in the primary aluminium space, right? So Vedanta aluminium, yes. Let us just wait for the split to happen, and then let us play on all the different, six entities which will be coming out of that split, right? So once you split, you have a very clear-cut bifurcation between each of these metals, right? Whether it is your base metal, or whether it is your power, or whether it is your aluminium or it's zinc, right? You have a very clear-cut direction to play.
Okay, all right. We'll leave it over there. Thanks for joining in, Parthiv. Good to get that perspective from you. Well, that's the metal space and the Anand Rathi call out there.